Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guest for episode 176 is vocalist ZAC MALOY of the Nixons. The Nixons recently released a reworking of their 1997 song December through Pavement Entertainment, just in time for the holidays. They are also currently taking pre-orders for an upcoming live album called The Nixons Live at the Trees. And here's ZAC MALOY to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about the Nixons, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Well, I mean, we're from Oklahoma. The state motto of Oklahoma is not without labor. We were just due to sweaty, hard rock band. We loved The Who. We loved Van Halen, Zeppelin. I mean, we came of age in the time of Pearl Jam, Nirvana, SDP. So we got lumped into that. I can't tell you how many times we were, reviewed or an article about us that we were called post grunge, I think is what it was kind of, because we were a little later. But and by the way, people would say, yeah, they sound like a knockoff of Pearl Jam, and I'd be like, hey, compare me to that band. I'm cool with that.
Well, there's been a lot of activity coming out of the Nixons camp in 2023. So why don't we talk a little bit about it? You recently released a reworking of your 1997 song December. It was released through Pavement Entertainment. You kind of mixed up the lyrics a little bit, a little different bit of an arrangement. So how did that come about?
Pretty simply, we got asked about a year and a half ago to be part of a compilation holiday album. I think it was called A Very Grungy Christmas, speaking of grunge, which never came to fruition, but it got me thinking. The dude, I remember he called me. He's like, do you guys have a Christmas song? And we have this song called December, but I went and listened to it and I realized, it doesn't ever actually mention Christmas. It's just about missing someone and promising you'll be home, for Christmas, for December. And so I just I really did just change a couple words. I think I changed Valentine's to Christmas time. And I think I put something in about a North Star. And boom, it's a Christmas song. And I'm actually super glad we did it. And I hope that project comes back. But even if it doesn't, I don't care, because it was fun to do that. I'm a songwriter. That's my job. I'm sitting talking to you from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going in to a studio on Music Row today to try to get a cut. So, I mean, it's my job to do that. But the one thing I've never done is reimagined a song 20 years later. So, in a lot of ways, it was very cool. Musically, it's quite a bit different too. The original had our second bass player on it, and it also featured piano. And this one, we sort of did a little bit more straight ahead rock version of it. I mean, it's still a ballad, but yeah, it was really cool. I'm kind of feel lucky to have gone through that process.
You guys also have a live album coming out. It's currently on pre-order. It's called Live at the Trees. It's a double vinyl live recording. It comes in a couple of cool vinyls, which I'm a collector of more of the colored stuff instead of the standard black myself. So I'm glad that you made that available. So why don't you talk a little bit about what led to you guys putting out this live album?
I'm actually really excited about this because, again, I've been in a rock band. We took a hiatus in the middle, but technically I've been a member of the Nixons since 1990. And we've always been told, you guys are so great live. How do you capture that on tape? And I'd like to think we did. I mean, our album FOMA was pretty loud and proud. But that's the whole deal, right? We've heard that, as rock fans, you hear all the time of, like, yeah, the Van Halen album is awesome, but you should see them live, all that stuff. So yeah, we've played Trees for a million years, going back to the early 90s. It's sort of our home away from Oklahoma. Wow, I just kind of coined something there. I have to remember that. We recorded our last show we played there in 2023 and packaged it up and got fans actually to send pictures from over the years. So you open up the thing and it's a collage of just us and our fans, which I dig that part of it. You don't get to do those things that often. So yeah, it's really cool, and it really kind of does capture the energy of the live show, and kind of warts and all. You know what I mean? Like it's not perfect.
Is this the Nixons' first time on vinyl? Because you guys came out at a time where vinyl was taking a hike.
No, we have released things on vinyl. Our last EP, Sonic Boom, released on vinyl. Our original independent album, Halo, we released on vinyl. So yeah, we actually have quite a lot of vinyl out there. So if for the collectors, get on the nixonsofficial.com, and we've got a store all set up there, and grab it.
So the Nixons, as far as I could tell, the last release by the Nixons was the Kaleidoscope EP in 2022. Are you guys working on new music for a studio album or another EP?
Man, you're asking all the questions, all the great questions. Yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot, me and my band guys. John, who is also the full-time drummer for the band Seether, is based in Oklahoma. And I sent all the guys a rough of me playing guitar, just tracked it right back there, a little Pro Tools rig, of a couple new songs. And John tracked drums for both of them. And now I'll kind of clean them up and send them to Ricky in Utah to play bass, and then back to Jesse in Oklahoma to play guitar. They'll send it back to me. I'll sing it. So yeah, I mean, we talk about this all the time. Modern technology allows for that. I mean, there's nothing cooler than being in a practice space with your bandmates, jamming out ideas and, ooh, play that riff again. I have an idea. And it would be great, but we all have, as I mentioned, John's in Seether. I'm a songwriter in Nashville. We all have sort of day jobs, as it were. And so, but yeah, we do. We've got a couple new songs. So again, just follow on social media, get on our website. We'll be breaking news soon. And by the way, I'm really excited about these two new songs. They're, yeah, gonna be cool.
Awesome. When can we expect them?
Well, that's the part of this whole machine that is the tricky part. I mean, in the next month or two, there'll be an announcement for sure. I think the plan will be to release them as sort of in succession as singles. Don't know if we've got enough quite ready to do another EP, but again, the way music is being consumed and released these days, as you know, I mean, I had an artist that I worked with last year that released a single every month for 3 months in a row. Just boom, boom, boom. I don't know that we'll do that, but I like that about the current state of the music business. I miss a lot of the old terrestrial radio sort of being king, and as you mentioned, vinyl, CDs. It's all streaming now. It's all different. I have people that'll get me as the old man in the room to bitch about stuff, but I'm like, no. I mean, there's really great parts of all of it. So yeah, I would think in the next month or two, you're going to hear an announcement from us about a new single. And I won't say the name of it yet because we've got two. So we're trying to decide which will come first. But they're cool.
You're coming up on the 30th anniversary of the Nixons' debut album, Halo. Do you guys have anything special planned for that?
So we're going to put together something to commemorate, actually not Halo, but FOMA. Halo is the independent album. FOMA was the MCA release. And so we've been talking about it actually for years. Funny thing is that we thought about doing the 25th anniversary, and here we are 5 years later. You know how this works, and if you've been around bands, it's even more sort of sludgy sometimes, slow moving, shall we say? So, but yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff sort of collected. Some old demos of the songs that were on those albums. We've done re-records of a few of the songs, including Sister and Wire, that were on FOMA. And then we've got some live versions of some of those old songs that we'll put on there. So it won't be a sort of a recreation or remaster of it, but it'll be some sort of a reimagination of FOMA too.
Well, I'd say Halo led to FOMA in some short way. But what do you remember about getting that deal with MCA, being a young band, just having your first independent release, and now you're working on your first major album?
Oh man, so much. I mean, the first thing I remember is that we had met with several labels. We were lucky enough, blessed enough to have a kind of a hit independently in the Midwest, and then went out and met with 4 or 5 labels. The last one we met with was MCA, and 2 things I can tell you about that series of meetings. One was Al Teller, who ran the label at that time, who's a legendary, record guy. In this very low ceilinged, dark room, he looked at me and said, "We're prepared to make you an offer that you will not be able to turn down." And I said to him, "Do you realize you kind of loosely quoted The Godfather just then, dude?" Which is pretty intimidating and pretty awesome at the same time. The second thing about it was that MCA Records is owned by Universal, and just outside the building was Universal Park with all the roller coasters and rides. And they gave us fast passes and free passes for the entire day. And I'm not going to say that's why we signed with MCA, but it probably helped. The people were great at that label. I still am in contact with several of the people that my old GM and we chat still occasionally. And then making the first record was just a blast. Mark Dodson did it. He was a legendary dude who worked with The Who and Judas Priest and a bunch of bands. And we recorded it in LA. And yeah, you said it. We were kids in Hollywood. So just let the imagination go, buddy. But we got it done. And it was a special time in the band. And then funny to just think back on it. You just said 30 years. I mean, good Lord, amazing.
I feel like the album cover is quite iconic because even if you kind of didn't follow the Nixons throughout their career, I think if you grew up in the 90s and you saw the album cover with the little girl and the flames and stuff like that, it kind of triggered something like, oh yeah, I remember that album.
That's cool. I appreciate that. We were actually just talking about that. I went through some boxes at my parents' house that they dug out and said, "Get this crap out of here." And one of them had like 4 or 5 alternate album covers that I hadn't laid eyes on in years. But yeah, I really, kudos to MCA's art department because you're right. I mean, that album cover is what probably comes to mind if you think of us, or, oh, that song about a sister or but yeah. And you said it yourself. You just said, and I haven't really ever thought about it. It wasn't purposeful that halo is a 4-letter word that ends with a vowel, and FOMA is also, sorry, I'm nerding out now on the fact that they are pretty linked. And if you go look at the album cover for Halo, that there's a boy with flames all around him. So we sort of wanted to reimagine it. Funny story, when we played Trees 2 times ago, that little boy that was the model for Halo came up and said hello. He's in his 20s now. I was like, okay. Mind blown once again.
I noticed you put up a photo of when the Nixons opened for Kiss, who recently retired. You guys played at Madison Square Garden. The picture was from Madison Square Garden in 1996. What do you kind of remember about that show?
Well, I mean, that whole run was amazing. We, John, my drummer, is a massive Kiss fan. Jesse and Ricky too. I can't say that I was. I didn't have the lunch pail, when I was a kid. Of course, all those songs. It was just part of rock and roll. But it was a great time for us. We were our songs were just, Sister was just kind of rising onto the charts, and to be able to open for that band at Madison Square Garden. We played the Garden in Boston. We played Chicago. We played all these great rock and roll cities opening for this band. I won't say the band that took over the tour after us, but they weren't very cool to Kiss. And so they got kicked off the tour, and we were remembered by the crew as being super gracious and cool. And so we got invited to come back even to do some more dates when that band got bumped. And so, yeah, it was a great time. My parents came to Madison Square Garden to watch me play, my 25-minute opening set. But we did it.
You released a couple more albums after FOMA, the Nixons in 97, the latest thing in 2000. The band broke up in around 2000. Was there something specific that led to the band breakup, or was it just industry stuff?
Man, it's easy to talk about it now because we've all sort of buried hatchets and we're good. And I love those guys. They're my brothers for sure. But, it was just business stuff. It was, well, who gets the writing credit for this? And wait a second, who did this and who brought this in? And, in hindsight, you tell yourself, well, maybe we should have just been a little bit cooler about this or a little cooler about that. But, yeah, I mean, to get into the specifics of it would take me too long, but just little things like that are a band it happens with bands. I'm currently reading Bono's book, and it's amazing to hear him talk about that band, U2, that just, I just called those guys my brothers, and they are, but we spent 15 years apart. U2 managed to figure out a way to sort of stay a family. That's incredible. That's a testament, because it, didn't happen for us, and it doesn't happen for a lot of bands. So, but again, it's easier to talk about it now because we are, sort of like back together. I'll probably be calling John soon. He's going to be in Nashville soon, making some Seether music. So,
was there a particular event that brought everybody back together 15 years later?
Well, we got asked. I got asked about once every couple years. Hey, come play Edgefest in Dallas, or come play Buzzfest in Houston, or come play Kane's Ballroom in Tulsa, which is sort of one of our home venues in Oklahoma. And I had just been so burnt out on it and was happy writing songs, and I just said no every time. And then finally, this great venue in Oklahoma City, the Chevy Bricktown Event Center, right in the heart of town, they came to us and said, please come play a show. It's been 15, 16, 17 years. And I got on the phone with Ricky, who probably he and I had seen the least eye to eye of any of the band members. And it was interesting, actually. I drove to Oklahoma for a high school reunion in Ada, little town I grew up in. And I drove back, and Ricky and I got on the phone, and we talked for 300 miles. And it was awesome. We sort of remembered that, remember we were the ones that would be in the front seats of the van listening to the new Radiohead album, and then we got to open for Radiohead, and oh my God, do you remember this story? It was time, and we were, adult enough to sort of be able to, just put those things in the past.
During your downtime with the Nixons, you released a couple solo albums. 2001, you released Life, and Saturday Is Gone in 2004. But you mentioned it earlier, songwriting in Nashville. You wrote songs for Carrie Underwood, Skillet, Our Lady Peace, Hailstrom, Hanson. I mean, as far as songwriting goes, would you prefer songwriting versus performing live, or are they two different animals?
Yeah, man, the good news, George, is I don't got to choose. I get to do it all right now. So, listen, for that time away from the Nixons, it was all I wanted to do, and it was all I did. I mean, I would play an occasional, acoustic show here or there. I've played the Bluebird several times in Nashville, which is fun to, play my Carrie Underwood song. I just had a number one song with the band SHINEDOWN, and just played it at the Bluebird just a month ago. And those things are fun to do. But to answer your question, I love it. I get to go in and write songs with these amazing artists, and then I don't got to worry about that song anymore. They get to go and perform it. But now, since the Nixons have come back together, I tell people that I feel like, the luckiest songwriter in the world, because if I write a song that's sort of like a little wacky, I've mentioned this title before, but I have a song on the last Nixons album called Dead Electric. Well, Tim McGraw's not cutting a song called Dead Electric, so you know what I mean? Like, so it really is kind of fun. So when you ask, which do I prefer? The good news is that I'll put it this way. I sat down this morning, and picked up a guitar, this one, and I just wrote down a song, wrote a song. I'm not done with it, so I'll have to jump back on that. But I'm probably going to track that up and get a drummer and bass player, and I'll release it as a ZAC MALOY solo song. And, honestly, that I didn't even have that planned this morning. So again, that's the good news about where I am right now, which is I do have to write songs and be thinking, if I'm in the room with, said artists, be cognizant of what maybe they wouldn't write about. If it's a happily married country artist, maybe you don't write about chasing girls. You know what I mean? So you do have to think of it as a job, my job. But again, the fun part for me is I got this other playground, over here that I can hang out in. So it's cool.
So When it comes to songwriting for other artists, you do have the opportunity to write with them. It's not something that you pen out and then they choose from your catalog.
It happens all different ways in this town. I was lucky to get in the room with CARRIE Underwood. We wrote a song called Temporary Home that ended up being a hit for her. But I have a Blake Shelton song that I just wrote with two other dudes on Music Row, and then we handed it off to his management label, and they cut it. There's a lot of great artists. George Strait didn't write much of what he did, but what an amazing, iconic performer. And so, yeah, Nashville is it works all different ways. Yes, we pitch songs, but if you can get in the room with the artist, it actually kind of helps. So, yeah.
The Nixons had a pretty big tour back in 2022, touring with Everclear and Fastball. Was that like your first big tour, getting back together, and obviously post-pandemic?
Yeah, we did a short little run with Sponge a couple years before that, but that was 2 months, maybe a month longer than my wife would have liked last summer. But it was a blast. We Art from Everclear kind of reached out, and so great that you guys are back. He was actually very cool. I posted something on Instagram about a song that I had that charted, and he put a comment in the Instagram thing, Art from Everclear, this iconic 90s rock singer. He's like, dude, I've been watching your career as a songwriter. So proud of you. Way to go, or something like that. And so we reached out to each other, and one thing led to another, and there we were. And it was amazing. We played from, Colorado all the way over to Boston, New York. My sons, I mentioned to you earlier that I had a son at Tufts in Boston, and he came to the show we did in Boston. I have another son that's at NYU. He came to the show at the Palladium in Times Square and got up on stage with me and sang. And yeah, man, that was a blast. It was a blast.
What are your plans for 2024 as far as live performances?
Well, I got a couple, I don't know when this airs, but I've got a couple shows at the end of January, acoustic shows back in Oklahoma and Texas. And then we're talking about shows right now. Was out in LA doing a private event in December, and my agent was out, and we were kind of rubbing our hands together saying, okay, what can we do here? And going to reach out to a couple of our friends. The best way for the Nixons to go play shows is we can go to Oklahoma and Texas and fill up a room, but it would be ideal to go do one of those packages like you just mentioned with a couple other bands that are cut from the same cloth. And so nothing to announce, but again, you can follow us all over the social media stuff, and just keep in touch with us. And again, there is going to be a lot being announced, new songs. The vinyl should be done soon. There was a problem with the original pressing, so they had to go back, and luckily they caught it. I would have hated for you to have gotten yours, and track one was skipping, I was told. So it's all fixed now. But yeah, honestly, man, follow us on social media. We always have stuff going on, and hopefully there will be another stretch out there for us to do.
You had posted a photo on social media of these old cassette tapes. I assume it was when your parents made you clear out all that stuff.
That's right.
Are you planning on releasing sort of like a collection of the stuff that you found, or is that going to end up being the material that you talked about earlier for FOMA?
Well, this is the cool part, man. So we have a guy, I'll shout out Scott Whitehead. He's been a fan, but a friend of the band for 20 plus years. And I started taking pictures and sending them to the thread I have with my bandmates and Scott, who's basically the fifth member. And he's very good about like taking old ADAT tapes and cassette tapes and transferring them, all that stuff that I don't know anything about. I'm a producer. I'll be in the studio today, but I don't know anything about that stuff. But I started taking pictures of live in Boston, acoustic show in Chicago, all these cassettes and all these CDs. Speaking of Boston, one of those acoustic shows where the fans came and sat on the floor in front of us and we played. And I started sending pictures to Scott, and I could hear him salivating from 1,000 miles away, because he's like, dude, get me that stuff. So I actually boxed all that stuff up. I kept some stuff for myself. We were in Rolling Stone magazine, so I kept the copy of that. And the Billboard articles my mom and dad cut out and highlighted, and they were super awesome and cheesy about that. They kept every Billboard magazine we were ever mentioned in. So I've got boxes of that stuff, but I sent Scott all the audio and literally 2 crates full of audio. And he texted me a few days later and was like, oh man, this is going to be fun. It'll take a while. There's a lot to sift through. I mean, literally boxes. So, but yeah, that's great. I mean, I love that we get to go back and sort of reminisce, you know?
You mentioned your sons earlier. One of them, Jude, has started to release some music. I saw he's got a track out there called Space Girl. So he's kind of following Dad's footsteps a little bit. Different sound, but he's following your footsteps.
Yeah, I'm super proud of him. And, you know, I mentioned Ben, my oldest, he's gainfully employed now. And, so, I'm thankful for that. And then Jude is, he's got a little duo, Liv and Jude, very talented chick named Liv Haynes, who's, they're making music together. He's released some solo stuff, but yeah, Space Girl I actually co-wrote with Liv and Jude, and it's out there. So go check out Jude Malloy. He's kicking butt.
Well, those are all the questions I have for you today, Zach. The Nixons have the December single 2023 version out now. You're taking pre-orders for the Nixons Live at the Trees. Sounds like you got some great stuff coming out in the future, and I'm glad you could take the time to come on the podcast and talk more about it today.
All right, good to talk to you, man. I appreciate it.
Once again, I want to thank ZAC MALOY of the Nixons for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest single, December, streaming now and also on YouTube. Head over to the band's website, thenixonsofficial.com, and place your pre-order for the Nixons Live at the Trees. I also want to thank Barbara Papa George and Pavement Entertainment for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.